I was so excited to get my shipment from Last Bottle Wines in the mail the other day, full of incredible red wines, all from Napa Valley. I love wine tasting, so having this to my door couldn't be happier. Also, couldn't be more excited that today's episode is brought to you by Last Bottle Wines. If you don't know already, they're a Napa-based online wine shop with a twist. They offer just one handpicked wine per day until it sells out, and they're always at incredible prices. We're talking 30 to 70% off retail. And the best part is that there's no subscriptions, no fees, and no minimum purchase. And I could not be more excited to bring this offer right now because they're having a marathon sale, which is coming up March 28th and 29th. Even better, we're offering Dateable listeners 10% off your first order with code DATEABLE. So if you are a wine lover like me, this is a great time to join. And did I mention that shipping is 100% free? So what are you waiting for? Mark your calendar for March 28th and 29th, or get on it earlier if you want. You can sign up at lastbottlewines.com and use code DATEABLE and find out why Last Bottle is the most fun way to discover and buy amazing wine. We are so thrilled to be partnering with Hinge. Hinge is the dating app designed to be deleted. As you all know, I'm a huge Hinge advocate as I met my partner of almost 3 years on the app. Even before meeting him, Hinge was always my go-to app because I met more relationship-minded people here and had some great dates. Clearly, I haven't been on the app for a little while, but I re-downloaded it to check out some of the new features. One that stood out to me was the voice prompt, my best friend's take on why you should date me, where your friend can hype you up. Not only does this make the profile creation less daunting, but it's not always easy to see your own green flags. So to test it out, I asked Yue some fun prompts to get her take on what I could put if I was dating again. So the first one, how long have we known each other? What was your first impression of me and how has that changed?
Julie and I have known each other for almost 10 years. My first impression of Julie was that she's very social, but I've learned that she has a lot more depth to her beyond the social butterfly that she is.
My next prompt, what do you think are my green flags?
I would say she's deeply loyal. She believes in love, curious mindset, and she is fearlessly ambitious.
And then last but not least, what kind of friend am I?
Julie is the kind of friend who will always have your back, no matter what.
Damn, that feels nice to hear. So download Hinge and try voice prompts today. Then find someone worth deleting the app for.
The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hi, Dateables. Welcome to another episode of the Dateable podcast, where we are your dating sociologists, and it is our mission in this life to dig to the bottom of people's dating behaviors so we can help you explain it, navigate it, and somehow deal with it. So that's it. That's our spiel.
And that's exactly why we're talking about porn this week.
Getting to the bottom of pornography, why we're doing it, how it's affecting you, and when do you know if you have a porn addiction? It's a real thing.
You know, porn is so fascinating to me because I feel like because we're millennials, right? And we were in the world where you had to get magazines and really seek out porn. And now it's so accessible to everyone. It's very fascinating to me because I still think I sometimes think of this mindset of like finding porn where I feel like now porn finds you.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I could be on a random website and then there's some girl like shaking her boobs. You're like, click on me,
right.
Click on me.
And it's like so ingrained in sex ed, obviously not school sex ed, but like the education that younger generations are receiving. It's kind of like their gateway into sex, where I feel like there's something about it being on a magazine versus a computer screen that makes it a little more detached. Then if you look at like VR porn, it's really starting to become more and more realistic. It's very interesting. And I don't know, I think it's a little terrifying if I'm going to be honest.
Yes and no. Yes and no. And we talk about this on this episode, is really how you use pornography. I will admit, during the pandemic, I watched a little bit of VR porn into it. So for anybody who's not from San Francisco, there's this amazing strip club called Gold Club. Julie knows. Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
UA's favorite place.
I'm obsessed. I do not like going to strip clubs at night. I love going to strip clubs during lunch, and that's exactly what Gold Club serves.
Well, they also what they do like $1 buffet or something.
It's $5, all you can eat, best fried chicken in the world, and sometimes they have tri-tip, and sometimes they have salmon.
The amount of times you tried to get me to go on my lunch break, and I'm like, no, UA.
And JV team comes out to dance at lunch, and they try harder to get your attention. There's less people there. Actually, no, sometimes it gets really crowded. But what I like about Gold Club is it's a very egalitarian place. There you have people who are tech entrepreneurs all the way to firemen to construction workers down the street because everyone can afford a $5 lunch. Actually, it is the best fucking deal in San Francisco. Nowhere else can you get a $5 lunch.
No, that's the true story on that. But that isn't what ultimately drives you. You like watching like the women dance, right?
I love watching the women dance. So when they closed down during lockdowns, they offered a VR subscription.
Oh my God. UA's like the first to sign up.
And I happened to have a VR headset, and I was curious. It was like $10 a month, and it was lovely. You get to go into the private suite with these women, and they get really up and close and personal, and they're very beautiful and they're charming. I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and the music was really good. So to me, it was a form of entertainment. It was a form of connection in certain ways because I miss Gold Club so much, and I would have the best conversations with the dancers, right? Because like they see me as completely non-intimidating. So they come and sit with me and tell me about their lives, and I tell them about what I do, and then we exchange phone numbers sometimes. Like it happens, right? And it's a great time. My guy friends love going to Gold Club with me because, of course,
I bet
all the dancers come afterwards. I've actually recognized someone at Gold Club a former coworker of mine. Yes, it's true. Only in San Francisco.
I feel like we have two really interesting perspectives because I have no judgment to porn. I really don't, but it does nothing for me. I could watch it and it does not turn me on in the slightest. And
at all.
At all whatsoever. There's nothing in it for me, but I know you love it. So I'm curious, like, what is it? And like strip clubs too. Like I've been before and I think there's like a novelty factor that's interesting, but it's not on my like weekly to-do list like it is on yours. Or
weekly to-do list. Trader Joe's and Gold Club.
Don't lie. You would go weekly if you could.
Yeah, if they offered a membership, my punch card would be full, girlfriend.
Yeah. But I am genuinely curious. I know we've talked about it, but like, what is it that you really like about it?
Okay. I've also asked myself the same question. I think it's because first and foremost, I find the female body so extremely sexy. And I love watching female bodies move. It is just the most beautiful thing. And sometimes it turns me on, and sometimes, just out of curiosity, I just like to see the different bodies. There's just so many different types. So I'm just curious visually in that way. What turns me on is the fact that there's this act that makes people feel good, and I can watch other people feel good. And it's something that we can all get involved with. And I do like, I'm nosy. I have binoculars. I love voyeuristic shit. And in fact, that is the category I choose on Pornhub, voyeur. So I like kind of getting a peek into what other people do because it's such an intimate thing. I'm just so like, it kills me that I don't know how other people do it.
Do you remember you committed the ultimate faux pas at the sex party we went to? That you told people that you were watching them? Remember we asked if we could be voyeuristic, and UA and I were watching, and like we did get approval by people that ran this party to do this, so we were not being creepy, but we were kind of just like watching from this like ledge up top. And there was one couple in specific that we were watching, and they were a beautiful couple, and they looked like they were really getting it on in a way that, was sexy. But UA on the way out told them this. as we're getting our like lift home, they looked mortified because they were not aware that we were watching them. They were absolutely mortified. They probably never went back.
God, rookie mistake. I was giving them a high five. I was like, yo, you two were killing it out there. You did so many positions. Your bodies are rocking. And they were like, please get the fuck away from us.
You know what's so funny? It is really interesting that you said that you like doing it because you like to watch and be voyeuristic because you want to see how other people are doing it.
Yeah.
I feel like I never have thought about that. Like I always think maybe it's like self-absorbed, but I'm like, I'm doing it so well, and maybe if you saw other people, you would think like, oh, I'm not doing it as well as I think.
Well, you can't compare yourself. That's the thing. And that's what I've learned from porn is that there's just so many different ways of getting off, and bodies are shaped in so many different ways as well. So the different configurations will yield different results, and you just can't compare yourself to other people. I just like the fact that everyone's got this one thing that they can do.
Yeah.
And get pleasure from it, right? And it's just like this one thing that's behind closed doors, and I just want to know what they're doing.
Would you want other people to watch you?
I thought about this too. I've definitely thought about this. Not really. It doesn't get me off. I don't mind if other people watch me. The idea of it does not get me off.
So I don't want people to watch me, but I do like places that I could potentially get caught. Like semi-outdoor, but I wouldn't want to be, like, I don't think I would be comfortable at a sex party where it's like people could visually watch like we were doing and doing that.
Yes.
But I think like places that like I could get caught, but I'm like 99.9% sure I won't get caught. But there's that 0.1% that's getting me going.
Right. So in non-traditional sex places, like places that you shouldn't be having sex. Yeah. Yeah, that's
exactly.
That's so sexy.
It's like a thrill, but probably not. In reality.
I find that super hot until you get caught. And you're like, no, that's
right.
not fun.
Then that might change this fantasy for me forever. I'll like never want to do it, only in my bedroom from now on.
I still remember I have two friends from college that were dating each other, and they were having sex in a car in the middle of the night, and the cop came and knocked on the window, and she had to like cover her boobs, and he was like, how old are you guys? And are you okay, ma'am? And she's
That's
like,
mortifying.
I'm okay. Yeah. I mean, talk about just totally losing your libido at that point. I mean, it was super hot until the cops came.
Until the cops came. Yeah, that's a downer.
That's a downer.
You know what's so funny about, I just like think this sums us up so well for how we prepared for this interview with Matt, which is our guest today, that he is a porn abstinence accountability coach. So we go through like his whole journey of, being addicted to porn essentially to coming out of it and being abstinent and, teaching other men his ways and seeing how it really impacted his life like any other addiction. Mm-hmm. But to prep for this, I went deep into the Reddit forums, the NoFap Reddit, which I learned is another word for masturbate, which I did not know. Fap. Yes, I did not know this until recently. But you watched hours and hours of porn, right?
Hours and hours. And it really pisses me off because it takes me longer to find the video I want than it takes me to get off from that video. Yes. So hours is the correct description.
So that sums up how we prepare for interviews.
Wait, tell me more about this NoFap community and this Reddit post.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just people like holding each other accountable, like any other, like substance type abuse. And it's interesting because we talk about this in the episode. I feel like that's not as commonly understood. Like you think of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, or NA, Narcotics Anonymous. Those are very like ingrained in our society as support networks, but you do not think of porn. Porn is a subset of sex addiction. Like I think there's been a little more, I've seen like movies that kind of there was like this Netflix movie about these two people that went to like a sex addiction group counseling type thing. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's making a little more mainstream, but it's interesting to me that like people do turn to Reddit and places on the internet to say this stuff because there is a lot of shame associated with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we really dig into here too, is that the shame exists. It exists for the person that's doing the addiction with, especially when it comes to porn and sexuality. already. There's already like a built-in shame there. And then there's a lot of shame if there's a partner in the situation. I could totally see why you would have this like, am I not good enough mentality, which actually is quite in line with the question we got today. So yeah, Yue, do you want to kind of read that off? I think it's a really good one. That's super relevant.
So this person wrote in and said, I've noticed that my boyfriend has been watching pornography with women who look nothing like me. For example, he loves Asian pornography or pornography with women, and I am a white female. Should I be worried that he is looking elsewhere, or should I be worried about infidelity, or is this really not a big deal? Well, Asian pornography is definitely very popular. I know that. This is a hard one because it goes back to us saying we're not mind readers. So we're inferring, or in this situation, you're inferring that your boyfriend is interested in women who don't look like you. I think it's worth a conversation because we don't know if that's the case. People use pornography in very different ways. We've also interviewed people who say that they like to fantasize about people who don't look like their partners. As purely as a fantasy. And I think there's something very biological to that. It's, we're curious creatures, and there's just so many different kinds of people out there. But it could be a problem if there is an addiction of some sort, and if it's taking away from your relationship. So ultimately, we can't be the judge of that. Only you and your partner can get an answer and get to an answer at least. And all you can do right now is have an open conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo the statement of we don't know why. We don't know why they are looking at this subset of porn. We don't know. It could be the fantasy element that you said, or, I think it's unrealistic to think that our partners won't find anyone else attractive other than ourselves too. Whether they act on it is a different story. And I think people can debate if porn is cheating. And I think that is a conversation that's probably between you and your partner and how you feel about porn. But I think the whole element of, it kind of reminds me of like when someone says like, I have a type. Just because they have a type doesn't mean that they're not attracted to you. And also I've read like things about this, and you could almost like view it as the highest form of flattery, that even though they have a type, they still want to be with you. So I think it's all how you like spin it and talk to your partner and really see where it's coming from. But I do agree, like if you're not, if your partner's not intimate with you and they're only looking at Asian women in this case, then it's a problem. If you're like feeling loved and supported and connected, then maybe not so much. It kind of reminds me too of just even outside of porn, but I think a lot of people see their partner looking at, Instagram models, for instance, and liking photos, and what is the line? And I think realistically, there's all types of, women and men in all shapes and sizes, all colors of the rainbow, all of that. So I don't think that it's always going to be that your partner only likes one specific look. But again, it comes down to how problematic is this for you? It's always worth a conversation, because maybe even just by hearing that it bothers you, it might change their behaviors a bit. Or they might reassure you that it does not mean that they don't find you attractive in any way.
Yeah, we have to be really realistic about what's coming up for us. And I think I've been in this situation where I asked, am I not enough? Am I not attractive enough? Is my partner going to cheat on me? And that comes from all of my own insecurities in the relationship. And that's what's coming up for me. So in this situation, have that open conversation with your partner, but also tell them what is coming up for you. I think sometimes our partners don't know that this is impacting us in such a negative way. So it's just so important to keep them in the loop, but do not jump to conclusions. You have to collect all the information first.
I think it's also important to maybe look at it the reverse. Maybe you're not looking at porn because that's not your thing, or maybe you are. If you are, then that's even easier to make the comparison. What are you looking at? Yeah. And does that line up? I've heard of people that look at, like, women that look at lesbian lesbian porn, and they're not in real life. They've never acted on being with another woman, but for whatever reason, the lesbian porn is drawing them in for whatever reason. And maybe that is the fantasy element of it, or maybe it's a completely different reason. We don't know. But I think even if you're not a porn watcher, I kind of think about it as like, I don't know, like I think Channing Tatum is super attractive.
So hot.
Like, yeah. Most women that you poll would think that he, or like Brad Pitt or George Clooney, like the people out there are super attractive. Does that mean that I don't think my partner's attractive because I think they're attractive? No. You know, it's like, it's not a comparison. And also, just because I think they're attractive doesn't mean that I'm, well, first of all, not going to date them because of many reasons. They probably don't want to date me either. And I would never come in contact with them. But
you never
hypothetically, let's just say it in a perfect world, I could date them. It doesn't mean I would want to because I don't know what their personalities are like, or I don't know how we would jive as a couple. Like, just because they're like an attractive person doesn't mean that that's going to be who you choose to be with.
Sexuality is very complex, and I think it's important to notice that in your partner, and also by catching them watching this kind of porn makes it seem like very sneaky, and there's a lack of trust there. So maybe even go in with the mindset that maybe they're not sneaking around or hiding this from you. It just so happens that you are seeing it. So go in with an open mind, have an open conversation about it, and also go in with the intention of learning more about your partner.
Yeah, and some of it just might be habits from long before they met you. Maybe you've given them a new perspective. Like, there's other ways to think about it too.
True that. So getting into some announcements here, we have some really good news. So, you know, a few months ago, we opened up a program called Finding Your Person, and it was hot. I mean, it was like people were our wait list was completely full and our program sold out. But we are now opening up the program again. So, because we saw there were so many people on the wait list still. And of course, we want everyone to find their people. And the other side of this is that we've seen so much great feedback from the current program and people who are in it. So we really want to share this program with more people. We are opening this up only to our listeners. And to do that, you just have to go to findingyourperson.com, get yourself on the wait list, and you'll be informed right away as soon as ticket sales open up.
Yep. And we just wrapped up our first cohort. So that's part of why we're reopening this, is that we both have the capacity. And I think up front, we wanted to see, you know, first of all, how it went, and then how did, you know, the results happen for people. And we've seen just astonishing results, whether it's people that are really looking at dating in a completely different way, or, you know, have a budding relationship that they're really trying to like make sure it goes to that next level, or, you know, even doing the personal development. A lot of people have said that I was maybe aware that some of this stuff existed for me, but until now, I didn't really see how much it got in the way. So I think that's been really great to see people having those breakthrough moments, because, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Sometimes finding your person takes time, and a lot of times it's understanding yourself is that first step. So we definitely want to open it up again. We have some additional capacity. Again, it's just 2 of us, so it's going to be limited, but also the holidays are around the corner. Cuffing season's around the corner. I think we want to make sure we give back and give this wonderful program to as many of you that want to partake in it.
Again, that website is findingyourperson.com, and we'll be putting up some more details on our Instagram as well. So you can feel free to DM us there if you have any questions.
Awesome. Okay, let's do a couple of quick messages from our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We at Dateable are huge fans of therapy, and BetterHelp can match you with your own licensed therapist and connect you in a safe and private online environment. Me, for example, I was able to start communicating with my therapist in less than 48 hours. It was so quick. Now, BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, and it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling. Their licensed professionals specialize in everything everything from dating trauma, stress, anxiety, trauma with a big T, depression, grief, you name it. They have someone who's an expert in that. We at Dateable wish for all of you to live a happy, healthy life. And that's why as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/dateable. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, spelled HELP.com/DATEABLE. This episode is brought to you by Storyworth. This holiday season, I want to give a gift to my loved ones that makes them feel special and unique, just like the relationship we share. That's why I'm giving them Storyworth, which is an online service that helps you and your loved ones preserve precious memories and stories for years to come. Every week, Storyworth emails your loved one a thought-provoking question of your choice from their vast pool of possible options. The prompts are super unique, like, if you could see into the future, what would you want to find out? I wonder how my parents would answer that one. And after 1 year, Storyworth will compile all the stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake book. I'm looking forward to looking through the books every year as a holiday tradition. With Storyworth, I'm giving those I love most a thoughtful, personal gift from the heart and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Go to storyworth.com/dateable and save $10 on your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/DATEABLE to save $10 on your first purchase.
Okay, let's get into it with Matt from Porn to Purpose.
Porn. Have we dissected porn on our show yet, Julie? I don't think we have.
We've had a porn star, Mike Cleaner, but we have not dissected habits around porn and how it impacts sex in real life.
Implications of pornography. And there are a lot of implications, more than you think. So this is why we're going to have this conversation with Matt Sinkovitz, who is a porn abstinence accountability coach. Yes, he's 38 years old from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and he's dating someone but haven't defined the relationship. So here's the backstory about Matt. He had a compulsive relationship with porn for over 20 plus years, ordained Buddhist minister and mindfulness counselor now, and founder and coach at Porn to Purpose. He's coaching men in porn addiction recovering. Now, he's very passionate about his mission to guide men in ending their habit of watching porn so they can reignite the passion in their own relationships and marriages and can be a better role model for their children and just people around them. So Matt, welcome to Dateable. It's nice to have you here.
Julie and UA, thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
We're so excited for this topic.
And I'm not making a joke out of this, but it is true. I haven't watched porn in a while, so I did my research. Well, you got to stay up to date because, I have to go through all the categories. What are the new categories that are out there? I'm actually surprised by the categories I was drawn to. Things change and I'm evolving. So my pornography watching habits are evolving as well. But for you, Matt, what was your first introduction to porn?
I think like most boys, age 11, 12, 13, something like that, maybe finding something around the house, if a friend would introduce you to a magazine or a videotape or a DVD, I'm at the age where I really didn't have like internet in the house until like I was like high school pretty much, or I was almost graduating. So for me, it was kind of like old school, if I could, catch like a NC-17 movie or something like that, it was, that was like a treat.
Scramble channels on cable.
Yeah.
Like
I remember that.
Like the Fuzzy Spice Channel. That was a real
Fuzzy Spice Channel.
I feel like in today's day and age, though, like the access is just so much easier even. So pretty much like every probably young boy or even girl, don't want to discriminate on who's going to look at porn. Like it's so accessible this day and age.
Yeah, that's the trouble with it. It's like a, touch of a finger, away.
Yeah. And that's wild to me because, I had to look up the definition of pornography. I love looking at definitions because you have your own way of thinking about it. But the definition of pornography is that it is different from erotica. So erotica consists of the portrayal of sexuality with high art aspirations, focusing also on feelings and emotions. But pornography, and they emphasize this, that it it involves the depiction of acts in a sensational manner with the entire focus on the physical act so as to arouse quick, intense reactions. So it's transactional. Pornography does not involve feelings. And I'm glad that they made that distinction. When you were exposed to the spicy, fuzzy channel, Matt, what was pornography for you? Well, why was it so interesting?
Well, I think it has to do, I mean, as a young kid, as a young boy, it's just, it's an exciting, and arousing subject, kind of like first, being young, exploring your sexuality for the first time, maybe haven't really like experienced a woman or a female at that time. So it's kind of your introduction to sex. And you're also kind of like, as a kid, viewing something that's kind of like bad and risque. So it's just, there's this like element of excitement that comes with it as well.
So how did it go for you from like something that you just, happened to come across and watch or see to like a compulsion?
Yeah, that's interesting. I just did a show last night and I was talking about it with the brother that interviewed me, and we were dissecting that as well. And it's hard to say, it's one of those things that it meets certain needs. I was like, for myself, I was kind of like a shy kid. I was a little bit maybe socially backward. I was more shy around women. So for me, I think it was a way to like explore sexuality, understand sexuality, kind of maybe get that connection that I wasn't getting outwardly. I think it was a means of that. And also porn was, we've identified that it just like, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, it becomes a way to kind of meet certain needs. Just like if you find yourself standing in front of the refrigerator at 12 a.m. and you're not hungry, you're there's something else that you're looking for. If you've ever smoked cigarettes, a lot of times when you smoke, you're picking up that cigarette because you're looking for a fix for some other reason, So for me, I think I developed this like emotional dependency on it, and it becomes a way of kind of meeting all these different needs, which oftentimes are very unconscious for us. And it's tied, into our sexuality, So it's a tricky thing to untangle once it kind of becomes a regular part of your life.
And you say connection, which is interesting to me. Like so you started off as a young boy, you didn't have access to the internet. I'm assuming eventually this like progressed to watching porn online.
Yes.
What type of porn were you like interacting with? Was it more passively watching, or were you talking to cam girls and doing things that were more interactive?
Yeah, I never did the interactive thing. I never got that far. And I never even got to do like, this is probably going to sound late. What's the one that everyone's really in on? You could like be your
OnlyFans?
OnlyFans. Yeah, I never even did that. But I never really did the interactive thing. For me, it was kind of more passive. I remember when I was like younger, like erotic stories were like arousing to me. And yeah, then just like normal porn, I think, just viewing stuff, pictures at first, and then onto videos,
So how did the connection form? When you said you felt like a connection, what does that mean to you, like with porn?
Well, as human beings, we all desire connection, with other humans. That's like a part of our makeup, I think. So I think if we're missing that in our lives, if we're lonely or disconnected, or we don't know how to connect, or we're maybe awkward in our abilities or desire to connect, then I think maybe we use substitutes to connect. I think people use drugs. I qualify like an addictive relationship with porn as a drug. People use drugs as a form of connection. In the work that we do, like one of the ideas is that the opposite of addiction is connection. So whether it be drugs, alcohol, or food, it's like we're attempting to connect with something through that medium. Maybe it's with ourselves, and maybe it's we're looking to create that, which we're not getting from others. So yeah, to connect with others.
So some would argue that pornography is a good way for people to start exploring their sexuality, especially in our culture where we don't actually openly talk about sex yet. In sex ed, we're not seeing pornography. We're just talking about how to not have sex. Right. So what would you say to that? Do you think that there are some benefits to pornography?
Yeah, that's interesting. I take a very kind of like moderate stance on it. I don't take a hardline approach, that maybe some would that say it's all bad or it's all wrong. I think there can be a healthy relationship with it potentially. I often liken it to any potentially addictive substance, like alcohol. For instance, I've never had like an addictive tendency toward alcohol or drugs. I've been able to do those things kind of casually. But some people, like one sip of alcohol and it's like it's chaos. So I don't think there's like a clear, definitive answer for everyone around that. I think it probably could be a healthy way to explore your sexuality. I've talked to a lot of guys who are like, yeah, you know what? I enjoyed it when I was a kid, or I still enjoy it from time to time, but it's not a regular thing. It's not something something I go to often. A lot of times couples enjoy it within the relationship, and it can be a healthy thing. But for some people, it becomes toxic because we develop this bond and this dependency on it. Sex addiction is like a very real category, so it just falls into that sex addiction category. So I would say, yes, it could probably be a healthy way to explore your sexuality, but for some people, it just has this really toxic kind of nature.
I mean, I could see it make dating is hard, right? And having sex is hard. So I could see it being an easier way to, like you were saying, to get those needs met. How have either personally or through other men you work with, how has it gotten in the way of people's dating lives?
I think massively, because you get into this kind of loop. I mean, even for myself, even in my 20s and stuff like that, this was when I kind of began to be aware that it was an issue. It'd be easier or more satisfying just to stay home, in front of the computer than it would be to go out on a Friday night, because everything you've got is everything, your wildest fantasies are all right there, so it's really easy to go that and to get dependent on that. And for a lot of guys, especially if you've got a regular relationship with it, it has this kind of draining effect. It fogs the mind. It makes you feel not very good about yourself. So that kind of has this cyclical effect of maybe you use porn, you masturbate, you're all these feelings of shame and all the stuff that oftentimes comes up around it come in, and that just kind of keeps you not wanting to go out. And so you just go back to the porn, just like any cycle of drug use, it's kind of there's just this repetitive kind of nature about it, which keeps you in that cycle, because it is easier to stay inside. You can grab that dopamine hit really easy. You can get that connection. You can feel oftentimes desired. You can feel significant. Right. There's this aspect of stimulation that occurs. So it meets a lot of needs. There is that side of it. So really easy to get stuck in that loop. And then when you're down, it's just easy to stay down, I think.
In your line of work, do you see that there is a correlation between porn addiction and sex addiction?
Oh yeah, it's in the same category. So whenever we do the work in our curriculum that we use with the men, we kind of generally, we focus in on the porn addiction, but the overall umbrella is sex addiction 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So then for yourself, did your porn addiction manifest into a sex addiction as well?
No, I think it was more, I think generally speaking, thankfully, I've always been pretty healthy in terms of regular human sexual connection. That was never really an issue for me. I wasn't acting out, I think, in unhealthy ways. I think, as a youngster, I was more promiscuous for sure, like many of us are, so maybe there was some unhealthy qualities about that. But no, for me, it was really just the porn seemed to be the problematic part for me.
Did it get in the way of your sex life? Because I've read places that if you masturbate too much, you might not like actual sex because it's a different motion.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking in heterosexual terms in those relationships. What has been your experience with porn seeping into actual real life sex?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, porn again, and I'll say any potentially toxic habit or behavior has a way of affecting all areas of our life. And for me, definitely one of those was my relationships. And again, as I grew, I think, in awareness, as I grew in consciousness, as I began to kind of wake up to the negative or adverse effects of this, I began to see these things more and more. But yeah, it creates a degree of secrecy oftentimes within the relationship. I would say in most cases, there's that degree of secrecy. And for me, it kind of created this sexual awkwardness that would kind of come up. Maybe if you're using porn frequently and then you go to engage and have regular sex, so you just kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable in your own skin. That was kind of my experience, and the best way I could explain that. Or maybe you kind of know in the back of your mind you're hiding something from your partner, or you just don't really feel like you're in real integrity. And then I think the most obvious forefront issue would be if you're using pornography regularly and you're masturbating regularly, it's when evening comes or whatever time of day and your partner wants to connect, you may be disinterested or just not present or just disconnected. You know what I mean? So it's right. Men operate a little differently than women. Oftentimes men after orgasm need a break oftentimes. You know what I mean? So if you're doing that all day long, or regularly, some guys have a very frequent, relationship with porn. Then when it comes time to be connected and intimate, the desire is oftentimes not there.
So there is something to be said with the way pornography is used and how it affects you, right? Because I think in my experience, in my own personal experience, as well as talking to friends, there are 3 different ways people use porn. 1 is reflection, so reflection of reality, what they experience. 2 is fantasy. And 3 is novelty, something that they've never seen, they've never tried. It's just purely for the novel idea of it. Of the 3 buckets, which one do you think is the most dangerous if you were to be addicted to pornography in that category?
So I wrote this down because I'm this is interesting. So it's reflection. And then the second one is, what is it?
See, fantasy, and novelty.
Okay. Well, not being too familiar with those terms, I think the fantasy would be the most problematic because you're just off in another world and maybe creating scenarios and engaging with scenarios which aren't very realistic. And that's one of the things that I hear from women, and I'm hearing is becoming much more of a problem with younger kids. These young boys are being trained up with these really aggressive kind of like sexual ideas. They're in that fantasy world. So when it comes time to like, engage sexually, that's kind of what they're acting out of.
Right.
Living in this fantasy world, not grounded in reality, I think could be very problematic potentially.
Like missionary is just not doing it.
Yeah,
for them.
Ain't cutting it.
So wait, what's reflection? What does that mean?
So like it reflects your reality. So some people, some people, and it depends on my mood. I like to see this too. I like to see the woman who looked kind of like me, and maybe she's doing it with a guy that kind of looks like someone I know. And then they're in positions that I would do. And it reflects reality. So it's kind of like, oh, I get to see a little bit of myself in this. But what you are saying is in the fantasy, it kind of warps people's perception of what sex is, especially for those younger kids who may not have had much experience. And I don't know if you've seen the show Euphoria. Have you seen the show? It's about high school kids and it's coming of age, but also just the way they navigate around sexuality. And there's a scene where this very romantic kid is trying to have sex with his girlfriend, and all he knows to do is throw her onto the bed face down and starts just like doggy styling her. And she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Do you not like this? Because this is what I see in pornography." So with that image in mind, did porn affect the way you have sex in a negative way for your connection with other people?
I don't think it had an adverse effect on me in a negative way in terms of the way that I engage. Maybe it gave me some ideas around things, but I don't think it was ever unhealthy in that regard. But I would say, after kind of hearing your kind of description of these three things, like the reflection, okay, I get that. The fantasy, I think I get that. And then the novelty piece. I'd like to speak to that if I could, because I think maybe I have some suspicion around what that is. That is another area that I see as potentially problematic for the young people out there, and like where porn can potentially take us. Like especially in today's modern day of like ever escalating like porn genres, you were out there kind of checking out genres and stuff.
Yes, genres. That's a good word. Yes.
It gets weird. It gets weird today,
It gets weird.
Like if you went to Pornhub and like looked at the categories, like it goes way far out and it goes weirder and weirder and weirder.
Wait, what's like a weird one you've seen? Or I don't want to say weird because, so it could be someone's cup of tea, but
exactly.
No, I think this is weird because I don't think this is right. This category is very hot. It's step siblings.
Oh, step's hot
right.
now. Yes.
It's a huge one, and it's a very popular category.
Right.
Right. And that in real life would be just wrong.
It's just wrong.
Step, there's like animals, there's like the parental role thing, it's just like whatever, there's like old, young, like you name it. And it just gets weirder and weirder. Anime is a big one that I never kind of got.
Oh yeah. A lot of anime, a lot of cartoons.
There's like the she-male thing. And again, I don't want to, because some people, maybe that's just their thing. So respect,
Right.
But I would say that's one of the dangers today is because porn is like a drug. And like with a drug, it's like you need more and more, you need like a harder and harder fix to kind of get that fix, So I think because of that, because of the demand, like the genres are getting weirder and weirder, like more and more bizarre. I think it's getting more aggressive and violent in nature to kind of hit those arousal mechanisms. And oftentimes what people are engaging in, I think they're engaging with it for the novelty. And oftentimes what we hear from guys in my experience was like, now I'm watching stuff that really doesn't even line with my true preferences and tastes, It's just what I need to kind of get off.
Well, I think especially when you're younger, it's so important to have those good sexual experiences early on, because I do think they shape your outlook of what sex is and how you view it as you get older and older. So I could see this being really detrimental to one, like the people you're saying that are watching the porn that are like, is this even what I like?
Right.
Like they think it is.
Right.
And then also the people on the receiving end, like I was thinking about the example you gave, UA, about Euphoria. Like that would be horrible if that was like your first sexual experience. I would never want to have sex again if that's what someone did to me.
Yeah.
So I guess, Matt, like how did it show up then in your relationship? Can you give us like an example of a relationship you were in where you started to think this is problematic?
Yeah, just very, it was probably a relationship, a great relationship that I was in, probably in my mid to late 20s, and great girl. And yeah, porn was a regular part of my life. So, I was using porn daily oftentimes. So, like maybe I'd be by myself or she'd be away. away during the day or something like that, I would use porn. And then so she would come home in the evening, or it'd be, would be time to go to bed. And I had already done my thing for the day. I was just kind of either one, I was so intrigued by like the stuff on the screen that just like regular sex wasn't as interesting.
Right.
Or I had already kind of spent my energy elsewhere, so to speak.
So did you ever like tell her that's what was going on? Because I could just see this as the woman in the position being like, this guy is never interested in sex, or he can never get off. Like, I would think I was doing something wrong. Right. Is where my mind would go.
Yeah, I would think so too. So no, I don't think we ever brought it up. We never really talked about it. I'm not sure that I was that clear that it was that big of an issue at that time. So I might have not had the awareness to bring it up, As I reflect back upon that and I consider the lack of like sex in that relationship, I know that there's a portion of that was definitely like due to me and my disinterest at time.
Was that what ended it ultimately, or was there other reasons?
I think it was one of those relationships that just kind of like the flame romantically just kind of died. I got to say, this girl and I were still really good friends. We have like a great friendship and we still stay in touch regularly. So it was one of those relationships, like we had our season and then we just kind of evolved into just like a friendship. And then at the end of it, we were just like, we were great friends. We loved each other. And we had this kind of mutual breakup and we just kind of went our separate ways, but we were able to maintain the relationship, which I think is ideal.
Yeah, I could see though some of it, like if the sex is out though, then it becomes a friendship.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And for me, that was part of my thing. I was like, I really desired like healthy, passionate intimacy in relationships. And I knew porn affected that. So like for me, that was a big driver to be able to really experience that high quality connection within relationships.
Well, let's actually add to that a little bit. I want to know, what was the tipping point for you to say, I have a problem. I'm going to try to solve this problem or navigate around it. And then going all the way to now I want to help other men with the same problem.
Yeah, for me, it was just, I was in my 30s, it lasted from my teens into my 30s. And I just kind of like began to have this awareness that it was something that I had to hide in my life. I became really conscious of like the way it adversely affected me, and it was something that I had like decided like multiple times, like I'm done. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to go back, but I continued to return. So, and I was also kind of moving more into entrepreneurship. I was moving more into service and like feeling called to like serve and move my work into the service of others. And I kind of felt like I had this skeleton in my closet unresolved. And I felt like it was like literally inhibiting me from moving into the work that I was supposed to be doing and the life that I was supposed to be living. So I think all the adverse effects emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically that result, just kind of like being done with that and having wanted to quit but not being able to and continue to return. Porn's one of those things that most guys try and resolve on their own most of the time, for like a long time before they realize it's an issue. And then third, my whole organization is called Porn to Purpose. I was feeling called to live my life in greater integrity and greater nobility and greater purpose. And I felt porn was like a spiritual ceiling to me, I felt, of sorts. And I couldn't engage in the work the way I felt I needed to and wanted to with it still present in my life. So that was it. And may I continue?
Yeah, keep going.
So what I ended up doing was I had been heavily involved in personal and spiritual development, and I've always hired coaches. I've worked with a lot of coaches and mentors. So I was like, coach, and so I ended up dropping a couple grand on like a group coaching program, and I worked with a coach, and I got into community and accountability and did the deep work. And I did the deep work that was really required. Like a lot of people try and quit and they just kind of try and bare knuckle it. But what's really required is like a transformation internally. And we have to like learn to turn the lights on and see these needs that we're tempted to meet by going to porn. And we have to recognize that oftentimes we're emotionally immature as men. And maybe I go to porn because when I'm feeling distressed or when I'm feeling anxious or when I'm feeling sad or when I'm feeling lonely. But the healthy thing is to learn to sit with these emotions and be with these emotions and maybe this discomfort and then meet those needs in a healthier way. So I had to kind of go in and do that deeper work and do some healing and help that little boy that was still inside of me like grow up. You know what's
interesting? The way you're describing it sounds like, the deeper effects of like drug and alcohol abuse, right? And addiction. But in those worlds, getting help and support is very normal. I mean, there's AA, NA, like those are establishments that have been around for decades, but you don't think of getting help for porn. I could see why people would just be like, I can take care of this.
Yep.
Why do you think that isn't the right approach?
Well, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I'm like, I should pose a question question on Facebook. Like everybody seems to have some sort of issue one way or the other, or some level of embarrassment or shame or awkwardness around sexuality. Like it's very common to kind of not feel that comfortable around our sexuality. And I don't know if it's normal, it's just like a part of being human, or I don't know if it's like societally programmed into us. But for whatever reason, there's just a lot of shame around it. And sex is oftentimes not a subject that is comfortable to talk about. There's a lot of embarrassment. People might laugh at you and you might feel like a weirdo. You might feel like a creep. I felt like a weirdo and a creep. That was another, like, I don't want to feel like that. And so yeah, people just do not feel at liberty to explore these things oftentimes.
So how do clients find you? At what point are they at in their porn addiction for them to seek help?
So oftentimes, I run a pretty large online Facebook community, a private community for men. So we get men into community and we get men into accountability and we have these conversations and we provide a space and a forum for men to get in and start having this conversation maybe for the first time that maybe they've never shared with anybody else. Maybe this is hidden in the darkness for the entirety of their life. And now they can finally start bringing it forward and recognize I'm not the only, one out there. That's typically how I connect with my clients, either that or a referral. I'm quite active on social media and stuff. And oftentimes the guys that come to me and do the best are the ones where it's all on the line. I find that guys that are like fathers and husbands, their families, their relationships are on their line. They're disconnected in their relationships. They're not intimate oftentimes. They feel like a fraud in terms of a father and a husband. And so they got a lot on the line. And that's typically the guys that show up and are ready to commit to the work and actually do the work necessary to create the transformation.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I could totally see that. I definitely want to dig into like who's coming to you a little more because I think this is interesting. We keep saying guys and we think about men. Do you ever see women coming to you or facing this challenge also?
Yeah, I do. So of course, not nearly as much, right? Because maybe I've been learning that many women have a relationship with porn, but I think guys and girls are just different. I think we have a different experience with it. Guys are very visual and I'm not sure exactly like what it is, but I think, it's like women seem to like as Yue was saying, she likes the positions and these kind of different things, and maybe intimacy and connection maybe is more intriguing. But for guys, it's not really about that. As you mentioned, it's transactional. It's about the act. It's about the penis and the vagina. And the orgasm. So I think men and women are a little bit different, probably in their experience with the relationship with porn. But I know there's a lot of women that have issues with it. I know there's forums out there of women that have issues with it. I'm not sure what the female experience is, but I do get women that reach out to me. Oftentimes the women that reach out to me, though, are inquiring about their husbands because they don't get what their husbands are going
probably
through.
for their partner.
Yeah. I have had some women reach out to me that are just kind of dealing with general sex addiction stuff. And I have a lot of women raise their hand to be like, I like porn. Like it's a regular part of my life for me and I'm cool with it.
But I see that is the double standard of society because women can proudly say that they like porn. It's like a cool thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know any women who hide the fact that they watch porn from their partners. It's like, let's watch it together. Or I watched porn today. I mean, I just texted my partner today. I was like, I watched porn for an hour. What do you think about that? He's like, cool. But for men, there is shame tied to it. I don't actually know where that comes from, but I'm guessing that's what's feeding into the addiction. It's I shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure again if that's like because maybe something inside of us like just says it's not quite right, or maybe it's something we've been told and it's a story that we have, so.
Okay, let's hold that thought as we take a quick moment for some messages.
This episode is brought to you by Prose. Most of you have probably heard me talk about Prose, the world's most personalized hair care, and I want to update you all on the incredible results I've been seeing since using my customized products, which include a personalized shampoo, conditioner, and a pre-shampoo mask. My hair is now noticeably smoother, and I used to have really frizzy hair, and now it's much easier to tame. I personally really love the pre-shampoo mask because, well, it smells incredible, and it just makes my hair feel even softer. To get started with the personalization process, you take an in-depth hair quiz with questions around where you live, your diet, and your lifestyle. And they even take into account stress. By analyzing over 85 personal factors, Prose determines a unique blend of ingredients to treat your exact concerns. Prose is a healthy hair regimen with your name all over it. Take your free in-depth hair consultation and get 15% off your first order today. Go to prose.com/dateable. That's prose.com/DATEABLE for your free in-depth hair consultation and 15% off. This episode is sponsored by Via. We all know there are things that can help set the mood in the bedroom, but did you know a little THC could also do that? Yes, Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a low dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. This gummy, wow, it will awaken your senses, increase blood flow, and intensify any sexual experience. I've been pleasantly surprised by the High Love gummies because it is just the right amount of THC for me to have a good time without feeling sleepy. And hey, if THC is not your thing, Via also offers a wide array of other gummies without it. And everything legally ships in 50 states with discreet packaging directly to your door. So if you're over 21, you can get 15% off and a free pack of award-winning Dreams THC plus CBN sleep gummies with our exclusive code DATEABLE at viahemp.com. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Let the gummies work their magic. Head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off and one free sample of their Sleepy Dream gummies. That's viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp.
As you know, I recently left my corporate job and I've been in total recovery mode, all about self-care. One of my new routines is the nighttime shower before bed. There's just something about washing away the day and that reflection that's been super helpful for me. I've been using one of our partners, Osea's Mega Moisture Duo. This combo body oil and body lotion are so freaking incredible. It literally feels like I'm at a spa. I realized that the secret is seaweed and other skin level ingredients that are normally reserved for face products. And that's why I was so excited when Osea became one of our partners. And, you know, we're so grateful for partners like this because one, they keep the show going, but they're also super good for all of our listeners and for our own well-being. So if you want to have that nighttime bliss like I am doing, you can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at oseamalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. So head to oseamalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off. Let us know which products you end up going with. Share them in social. Super excited to see what you end up choosing.
Support for Dateable is brought to you by Incipio. Incipio offers legendary protection for all of your devices from phones to AirPods to tablets. They obsess over their tech to protect yours. It's like Incipio's line of products was made for me because with their phone cases, my phone is protected from drops as high as 14 feet. The cases are also wireless charging compatible and there's a lifetime warranty. So they've got you covered. I have the Organic Core Clear Case, which is made up of 100% compostable materials that reduces landfill waste by naturally re-entering the environment from where it started. All of the packaging is made out of 100% recyclable materials with eco-friendly water-based ink. Now, for Dateable listeners only, we have a special offer. These incredible cases are now available for purchase at incipio.com, and you can use the code DATEABLE for 20% off. That's incipio.com and use the code DATEABLE for 20% off. This episode is made possible by Armoire. Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days. Then when you're ready for new clothes, just swap them out. Listen, I live in Southern California. There is absolutely no need for puffer coats or any sort of those winter jackets. But when I travel anywhere else in the world in these cold months, I'm often burdened with the task of getting winter clothes. And now with Armoire, I can just rent my winter wardrobe. It's brilliant. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That is armoire.style, spelled ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
Living with ADHD can be a challenge, and dating with ADHD is definitely a challenge, we've heard many of you say. But finding the right care and proper tools needed to succeed can be life-changing. Done is an online ADHD care platform that can get you all the resources you need to help manage your ADHD. Online visits, refills, and a 24/7 care team made for you. In just 1 minute, Done's online assessment can help kickstart your ADHD treatment journey. With experienced clinicians, worry-fill refills, and online visits, you can start getting personalized care as soon as today or tomorrow. So contact an expert team that can help you around the clock and get a personalized treatment plan just for you. Here's how you do it. Take a free 1-minute assessment and book an appointment with a licensed ADHD clinician as soon as the next day. Get continuous care, one-click refills, insurance coverage, and 24/7 care team support with Done for just $79 a month, and pharmacy copays as low as $0. Visit get.donefirst.com/podcast to learn more. That's get.donefirst.com/podcast to learn more. Done. Turn ADHD into your strength. This episode is made possible by Badlands Pets. As you all know, Mojo, my precious baby, is the reason why I found love in the first place. He made me feel love again. So I would do anything to ensure his health and longevity. And actress Katherine Heigl and I have that in common. She's helped save over 16,000 dogs through her foundation. And after doing a ton of research, she feels there's one place we can look to improve any dog's health, and that's their food. So fortunately, she found that just by adding a few special superfoods to her dog's food, she saw huge transformations in their health. So she's made a 20-minute video explaining step by step how anyone can do the same thing to see incredible changes in their dog's health. I've definitely re-looked at what I'm feeding Mojo and making sure that, hey, he only has one life to live, and I want to make sure it's the best damn life. So if you want to keep your dog healthy and happy, go to badlandsfood.com/dateable and watch Catherine's video right now. Again, that's badlandsfood.com/dateable.
So you said the people that come to you that have a lot on the line, I could totally see that are in relationships, that their partner does not like this habit. Do you ever see like the flip side of people that just don't have any sexual and relationship experience that, have gotten caught up in porn? Like we were talking about earlier, it's easier, it's a way to connect, or do you find those people aren't coming to you as much because they don't see it as a problem?
Yeah, those like the single guy, the bachelor, he might recognize it's an issue, but he might not have the incentive in his life to really do something about it yet, and either until he's in that relationship or, he desires to be in that relationship. But I do get single men that come in. Another category of men that oftentimes works out well is the impact-driven entrepreneur, kind of like myself, that knows he's called to be more and to do more in this world. And he knows that porn is out of integrity or out of alignment for him. So he wants to get it resolved so he can, step into,
live the life he's supposed to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. We were kind of talking about it earlier. It's such a vicious cycle for these people that don't have a lot of experience.
Right.
It's basically hindering them from getting that experience. And I love what you said earlier, that the opposite of addiction is connection. And that's basically what you're not getting. Like if we have listeners out there that are in that position, that they feel like dating is just so hard and I can't do it, and this is better than nothing, essentially, what advice would you have for them to help them get out of that cycle and start connecting with actual human beings?
Now, are we assuming that maybe these users would be like porn users, these people would be porn users, or is this like just general?
Yeah, let's say they're porn users just because of this topic.
Yeah, I mean, porn to purpose, right? That's the whole kind of, that's the idea behind the work that we do. And that really spoke to my journey. For me, it really comes down to like tapping into a vision for your life. Like you've got to wake up to the issues that porn is creating in your life and the way that it impacts your life. And then we get clear on like what we want to experience. Like what do we want in our relationships? What do we want in our work? What do we want in maybe our spiritual connection, our relationship with God? What do we want in our physical health and our sense of vitality? And we recognize that porn affects all these areas. So for me, it's like getting to this point where like I want something different, and just kind of recognizing that there's more out there. But that really is that purpose, that vision, that why is such a crucial piece in the long-term journey, because you got to have something to really incentivize you to make the change.
And with that, I would love to know, only as much as you can share, of the clients that you've had, because I can see some people saying, like, how bad could it actually get?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us how bad it could actually get? Can you give us any stories?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could give you like generalities and like what I commonly see. I commonly see, 40, 50-year-old men who have had porn addictions for 30, 40 years since age, since their teens. Maybe it started off as just being like a wild young man and being very promiscuous and going to a lot of strip clubs and maybe prostitutes and stuff like that. Maybe just general like womanizing. But then it kind of gets darker. Maybe they're in a marriage or a relationship and it becomes something that, again, they use as their outlet. It's like their go-to. And it becomes something that's secretive and hidden. And then ultimately it becomes like this really disruptor within the relationship. There's hiding, there's lying, there's secrecy, there's jealousy, there's lack of intimacy. A big issue for a lot of guys out there, really prevalent, is like ED issues, like, issues in the bedroom and inability to like perform sexually. So that really has an impact on a man's sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And so the worst case scenarios is like children coming across dad, masturbating in front of the computer, kids finding dad's porn stash. The husband and wife haven't had, been intimate for years, a lot of lying. The husband's connecting with women online, but neglecting his partner. In the worst cases, these sexual tastes, they evolve. And some people navigate into really dark places and also illegal places. And that's another direction that can be really problematic, So it can get really dark and really low.
So do you see women wanting divorce and stuff, or is it hitting like those points?
100%. Women disgusted with their husbands, especially when they catch wind of oftentimes these really extreme genres that men find themselves in, Yeah.
I could totally see that. Like, how do men share this with their significant others? Or like you said that you kind of never shared it with your ex. Did you ever tell her at any point? Like,
or she knows now.
You're friends?
Yeah, right. I never really shared it, and I never felt like it was. Well, she like knows now, obviously, because like we're in touch, and she knows that I do this work. Exactly right.
She's like all these years later, it all makes sense to her.
Right? Yeah, it's really difficult. Again, there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt around it. Again, it can be just like embarrassing to bring up, but also like, maybe then how you're perceived as a husband, as a partner, like a guy that can't get his stuff together, I think that's what like stops a lot of guys from getting the help. One, they don't feel like they can bring it up, but two, they how do you get your partner on board to say, this is such a big problem that I need to like invest in this group coaching program. And like, I need to take some money out of savings and do this work. And like, it's that bad, So I think there's a pride aspect of it as well. I think that's a good way to put it.
And like, how can partners meet their partner if they did come to them with something like this?
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine it'd be really difficult. I could totally see that.
It could. And I think a lot of women feel as though there's like a degree of infidelity, So a lot of women oftentimes feel jealous or betrayed, angry. But I think the best thing you can do, because it is a difficult thing to bring up, is be understanding, to be loving, to listen. And if the man is sincere and he really wants to bring it up and wants to take action, like support him in taking action, because it'll drastically improve like the quality of the relationship and certainly, his life.
Well, I could see the shame coming in for like the partner too, like this, I'm not enough.
Oh yeah.
I could definitely see that.
For sure.
Yeah. And then for yourself, in your own experience with porn addiction, do you still experience relapse, or is it like, are you fully cured of it? I don't even know the right vocabulary for this.
Yeah. So I'm totally abstinent from porn. Like for me, again, it's one of those things that I don't think I could do or even have a desire to do kind of like casually, because it becomes problematic. And I just don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like the way it affects my sense of integrity. Plus, I really feel like, because I do serve a community and because I serve men in this work, I feel like I need to be the model of that and demonstrate, the example. So for me, I am fully abstinent, and I don't think kind of a casual relationship would be would be ideal.
Exactly. But how do you protect yourself from everything that's out? Like on Netflix, like that show Sex Life. It's not pornography, but it might be, right?
So I'm a vigilant. I'm vigilant, and it's like, be careful, little eyes, what you see. You know, like I grew up in church, and that was like a children's song. You know, but for me, like I just live with a high sense of integrity around it. I've got Covenant Eyes, which is an accountability software. I've got like accountability software on my computers, on my devices, and I've got like people that hold me accountable to this work. Like even on Facebook or Instagram, if I see a girl that's really like flaunting herself and being really sexual, you know, of course, sometimes like I'll click on the picture, but like if I notice that, like I like unfollow the girl oftentimes, you know. I try and just like really clean up my environment. In our work, we have this whole process we call clean up the field, and it's really to create like a more pure environment so our minds aren't going there in the first place, because it is sex sells and it's everywhere, you know. So I don't really watch stuff like that on Netflix, you know, and like on YouTube, I've got the parental controls settings switched, so I don't get like really adult suggestions on there. And on YouTube, on like Facebook, I unfollow, and I've got accountability stuff in place. So I've just put measures in place to create a more kind of like holy environment. So I'm just not really going there as often. And if I did relapse, it would be hard to look my guys in the eyes, honestly. So that holds me to a very high degree of accountability, you know?
Yeah, well, it definitely reminds me of like substance abuse. And like that's why people like forever will stay with groups, right? For the accountability. And it's addiction isn't like a one and done thing. It's something that can last an entire lifetime, even if you're in recovery.
Yeah.
I feel like we always hear of how detrimental substance abuse can be to relationships. Do you feel like porn abuse is in the same category, or do you think it differs in a different way?
Well, I mean, obviously, like substance abuse, you know, you might be out of your mind and do something crazy, you know what I mean? So probably not going to do that with porn. You might spend a bunch of money, you know what I mean, on a prostitute or online or something like that. I'm sure that's a problem. But I would say it's different in that regard. But in the way that it could be damaging and toxic and disruptive, I think it's absolutely relevant to the conversation. And I just wanted to say also, I recalled UA's request. So for me, it's still like a daily choice. You know, I do think what I find is I'm practiced now in making the healthy choice. Like I don't really go there. My mind doesn't really go there like it used to. I think I've reprogrammed my mind in many ways, and I've shifted my identity. Like I'm no longer that man. But I still have to be vigilant, and I still have to be mindful. I still have to be watchful and cautious, and I still get triggered. The thought still crosses my mind, but I think it's like the less we water certain plants in the garden, it's like they begin to die, and we can allow new things to grow, you know?
Right. I definitely see like what you're saying about the dangers of substance abuse. That isn't there as much because it's not mind altering.
Right.
But I do think what I'm hearing is that a lot of like the fallouts of relationships can be similar. The, you know, sneaking around, the lack of trust, like all of those aspects of how it impacts. Like, I guess now that you're not doing this, how has this changed your current relationship that you're in, either in terms of just how you show up presently and then also like your sex life?
Like world's different, you know, like porn, I think generally speaking, robs us of our power as men, you know, especially if there's a lot of masturbation involved, because like when a man ejaculates, there's that energetic kind of drain that occurs, you know, it's like the rest period that's often, you know, occurs. So I think what I meant is constantly doing that and is constantly out of integrity. If it's a problem for him, it just drains us of our power and we're just weaker men as a result of it, you know? So for me, again, I recognize that porn was affecting every aspect, every area of my life, my relationships, my spirituality, my work, my business, my sense of purpose, my income, and my health, like my energy, clarity of mind, you know, like you don't go to the gym as much, you know, you're not as ambitious, you don't have that drive. So for me now, the relationship that I am in, you know, I'm clear, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm in integrity. I think I'm honest. The sex is great. Like you're powerful, you're connected, you know, it's like the porno that you're like, you know, fantasizing about all your life. It's like happening, you know what I mean? It's like good, you know? So yeah, really high quality in that regard. And just a more powerful, present, intentional man, you know?
We kind of glossed over this in your intro, but you are an ordained Buddhist minister.
Right.
What does that mean? What does that entail?
There's many pieces to my story, obviously. But like when I was like around age 25 or so, I was in this really dark, depressed place, and I was like suicidal, and I was really dealing with a lot of obsessive kind of tormented thinking. I was really unhappy with just crap going on in my head. I didn't like myself. I was just in a dark place, So I was looking for a refuge, and I found mindfulness and meditation, and that ultimately led me to Buddhism. And I'd really dug deeply into that. I grew up in a very Christian household, and I got really into Buddhism and mindfulness and meditation, not as a religion as much as a way of life and a philosophy for living and a philosophy of well-being. And I ended up, really connecting with the community and working with the teacher. And I ended up training with my teacher. And I went through a seminary because I wanted to deepen my own studies. And through that work, I kind of woke up to this realization that I wanted to do this work full time and be of service to others. And I didn't, when I started doing like the Buddhist stuff, and I went to seminary and I went to, do my minister training, I wasn't thinking I was going to be doing this work around pornography, but I felt like a calling in my life. And, ultimately I went on, when I grew up, I was doing missions work and prison work and stuff like that with my parents in the Christian faith. So as a Buddhist minister, I ended up doing prison work and leading meditation in prisons, and then going and doing chaplaincy work in hospitals. I just did a year residency as a Buddhist chaplain in a hospital. So that's kind of how I ended up there, because I was just in a dark place and ended up digging deeply into my studies, and then going in deeper with my teacher and wanting to go through the seminary program and becoming ordained.
I think that's so fascinating, because a lot of addiction is an escape, right? And you've been able to find a way to funnel that with mindfulness in a way that, connects to you, opposed to like escaping reality, and, allows you to serve like that purpose. And I think that is a good way, a segue to takeaways. I think what I've gotten from this is that, like any other addiction, porn becomes problematic when it interferes with your day-to-day and the life you want to live and your purpose and connections to others. Like, I think all the basic human needs that we have, when those get sideswiped because we're so focused on something else, and it becomes an addiction. I think we think of addiction as, the big ones like drug and alcohol, but really addiction can be anything that really gets in the way of you living the life you want to be living. And like you said, there's always a thin line of, some people can look at porn and be completely unaffected by it. And then others, it gets in the way of them having meaningful lives and relationships. So it's all about, staying true to yourself and where you want to go. And I love what we were saying with, like, even if you're not there yet, having that vision and staying committed to the vision is like so important to like living the life you want and being able to recognize what's getting in your way.
Nailed it, Julie. Nailed it.
I think it's really empowering to know that we have control over our lives and what we choose to see in our environment. And the fact that you cleaned up your environment just shows that it is possible. I think everything in this world is whatever you put out there, you get it back. So if you put out that you don't want this sort of distraction or toxicity in your life, then you don't get that back. And we have the power to clean that up. I also think there is something to be said about how we use the tools or entertainment that's available to us, just like dating apps, right? You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. And I think with pornography, if it detracts from your relationship, then that's a negative way of using it. But if it adds to your relationship, I can see it being like, for me, I think it adds to my imagination. It makes me want my partner more, and it makes me excited when I'm away from him. But I can see it being bad if it becomes like keeping up with the Joneses. I can see opening up Pornhub and being like, everyone is fucking except me. Right? And having that feeling like I need to keep up. That's not a good feeling either, because then you end up judging your own reality. So how we choose to use porn is also in our power. I really enjoy talking about porn openly. And I think maybe sometimes that takes away the shame with it. And I do think there's something to be said just about being open about sexuality. And it's not just pornography, just sexuality in general would probably benefit us.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, my other takeaway was like, it's unfortunate that our society has such stigma and shame around sex and all sorts of addiction too. I mean, that I think prevents people from getting the help they need, right? And Matt, you kind of said that's the biggest barrier, is the shame of actually admitting that there's a problem. But I think we should celebrate people of taking control of their lives instead of shaming them that they're doing something wrong, because that's just going to be a perpetual cycle that keeps someone in a place that isn't serving them. And like you're living proof that like you can come out of things if you put your mind to it. It's 100% possible.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Anything else to add, Matt? I know you like live and breathe this stuff, but
no, there's always like a lot of stuff I could say, but I would just say, a couple ways that we kind of like identify, like, is porn a problem for me? Is this an issue for me? Now, I'm not sure how many men listen to your show.
We have quite a few men, a lot of men. Yeah.
But a couple ways that I think one could maybe judge or gauge, is this problematic for me? First of all, you probably just kind of know, like on a gut instinctual level, if it's cool with you or not. Another way is like, what is your experience with of pornography, like around pornography? Like after you use it in the days and the weeks that follow, like how do you feel about yourself? How does it affect your sense of self-confidence, your sense of self-worth, your energy levels, Feel socially awkward, sexually awkward? Like pay attention just to like the direct immediate feedback that you receive. Number two is it something that you are having to hide in your life? You're having to hide it from your partner. If you have to sneak it around. If you handed your phone over right now to your partner to go through it, like, would you be okay with that? Like, is it something you have to hide and sneak? Is that like a sneaky energy in your life? And number three, have you told yourself or decided at some point that you were going to quit, but you continue not to? Those would be some great indicators that you could use to gauge. And I think if you wanted to begin to explore it, get into community is a great first step. Just get around other people that kind of, as you mentioned, Julie, normalize the conversation for you a little bit, allow you just to get it out a little bit and just kind of recognize you're not alone in this journey, and you can begin exploring some resources that way and get some support. So.
Well, that's why I think like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous has been so successful and helpful to people, is because it gives community at the end of the day. So I'm really glad to hear that there is this for porn and you're like helping lead the way. I guess like for people that want to learn more, that might be going through this, what are some ways that they can kind of get in touch with you and find these communities?
Yeah, well, thanks for that opportunity. So I run a Facebook group online. It's currently called Making Peace with Porn. It's a private group of men only from around the world. The name of my coaching organization is Porn to Purpose. So we're thinking about changing the group to Porn to Purpose. So if you search the group, it'll either be Making Peace with Porn or Porn to Purpose. That'd be a great way to connect with us on Facebook. Or if you'd like to connect directly, if you're a man or a woman, maybe you're a female and you've got some questions about it, regarding your partner or whatever, makingpeacewithporn@gmail.com would be an easy way to connect with me as well.
Great. Can I ask one more question actually before we go out? Please. Do you typically work with heterosexual males, or do you see this with like LGBTQ plus community as well?
Yeah, I understand it's very prevalent in the homosexual and the LGBTQ community. Hopefully I said that right. I understand it's very prevalent there as well. Generally speaking, I work with heterosexual men. I have worked with homosexual men. Oftentimes, if a man is kind of more in that category, he might be a man that deals with what he calls same-sex addiction, or maybe it's like an attraction toward other men, or maybe like bisexual men. So they're kind of working through navigating that terrain in their own life. But I'm here to help all. But generally, it is heterosexual, like identifying men. Yeah.
Got it. Well, thanks so much, Matt. I mean, this is a wonderful conversation, and I'm glad that we're openly talking about it. And for, any of our listeners who want to learn more, you have all the resources now. We are going to wrap up this episode, but before we do so, we always like to say this. We love you. We hope you love us too. And if you do so, please go into Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and write something nice or write something insightful. We love reading those love notes that you've all been sending in. Those are great. And you can always tag us on Instagram at DATEABLE Podcast if you have some feedback or just want to chat with us about stuff. And on that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Stay dateable. The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @Dateable Podcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all of those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.